everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I'm super excited to have Jared Throneberry with us today. Dude with the best name ever. I just got to say, we also think of him as somebody from our friends at Bloomerang, but that name.
That's great. Yeah, there's actually one other Jared Throneberry. He's a band director in Michigan. But besides that, I'll take it. Yeah.
He's not like on Game of Thrones or something?
No, I don't think so, as far as
Well, Jared, thank you for joining us, and I appreciate you being a good sport. But we're going to talk about something really serious here today. Aside from Jared's fabulous name, we're going to be talking about volunteers and how we should look at them, how we can look at them. And Jared's going to give us some really interesting information about this, and hopefully we'll get to change some of our attitudes and preconceived notions that we have. Before we get into that, I really want to make sure that we thank all of our presenting sponsors. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and 180 Management Group. Fundraisers Friday is a new program that we have on Fridays, just dedicated to the art, the craft, the science, the love, the pain, the torture of fundraising. And so I hope that you will join us tomorrow. We'll be on with Tony Bell at Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy, talking about some really important things that I think all of us can understand. Let's get back, though, to Jared Throneberry. Wow, from Bloomerang. Talk to us about your journey and how you came to be here with us as this expert.
Right. I was actually looking for a position in the nonprofit world, and but my background was really in IT and business analyst and quality assurance. And I found this position at Kindful that fit me to a T. And it was the perfect description, and it was the perfect company. I get to help nonprofits, but do what I do. And then a year and a half, about that, they merged with Bloomerang. And because the two had both great systems, but they didn't all offer exactly the same products. So we're trying to take the best of what was Kindful and incorporate that into Bloomerang and give our customers just the perfect software to manage their donors and raise money. So yeah.
Wow.
It's really great. Yeah. So it's an internal role that I have. It's testing the software to make sure that what we put out is great and in good working condition. So that's what I enjoy doing.
You know, Jared, one of the things that I really admire about the Bloomerang, I'm going to call it the ecosystem, is that I feel like the team in leadership, they're always searching for new things. They're always trying to make improvements. They've been out there, buying other organizations, creating alliances, really an interesting way to do business. And for me personally, it seems like it's a model that the nonprofit sector can learn from, because we don't always like to play together in the sandbox.
Right. Yeah. No, we're all after the same mission, right? We have nonprofits that are trying to do good, and that's what all of us are in for. And the best outcome of that is best for everybody. So yeah, that's really the mission and the tone that we work with. I like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you do a beautiful job. And like I said, I think we can all learn from that mindset, because shoot, that's just something that is such a stumbling block for nonprofits. And, on the nonprofit show, we use the number 1.8 million, saying that 1.8 million nonprofits are registered in this country. And so that's a heck of a lot of activity, if you want to call it competition. Whatever, it's just a beehive of activity. And so we need to be thinking more strategically about how we align. And part of that alignment I really want to get into with you is the concept of volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, this is a huge thing. Talk to us about what this looks like to you.
Right. for many nonprofits, and maybe I'd say even most nonprofits, volunteers are the heart, the core of what they do. I know one in particular that I work with. If you were to walk into their office, you would see a dozen people, maybe 15 people walking around and doing things, when really there's about 4 employees out of the whole group. But there's so much activity and so many daily recurring volunteers that that you wouldn't think that, because there's just so many people involved. And if you took them away, then that would almost bankrupt, in as far as employees go, that organization. They wouldn't be able to do what they did without volunteers. So it's crucial for many to find creative ways to get volunteers and to utilize volunteers.
Right. But it seems like it's really fraught with a lot of, first of all, changing attitudes.
Mm.
Like a lot of organizations are like, and I'm sure you've seen this, but they kind of like make busy work for volunteers, that it's
Mhm.
not always meaningful or really productive. So
Right.
I'd love to get your thoughts on that. And then the other piece of it is, I feel like, and we'll talk more about this, but they organizations are fearful of volunteers because they don't want to feel like they are muddying the water with converting them to being donors and things of that nature. And so
Mm.
again, we'll talk more about that. But how do we change this mindset so that we are creatively using them?
Right. Yeah. So to your first point, it's really important to always show the impact that a volunteer is giving. It may be menial, it may be a task, it may be, and actually, frankly, I am great at doing repetitive tasks over and over and over again. I do not mind if it's just stapling papers forever. I will find a way that works, and I will get that staple going, and I will figure it out. Some people are good like that. So that's really one of the main points of this part that I wanted to talk about, is finding the right volunteer for the right task.
Mhm.
So if a volunteer doesn't feel like they're being useful or helpful in a particular area, it's probably because that's the thing they don't need to be doing. You need to find the other person who enjoys that will enjoy it and appreciate it. So that other volunteer, we need to figure out what it is that they love doing and get them plugged in that area. And then that way they feel productive and
Yeah.
important.
Let me ask you, I mean, you said this and it just dawned on me. I'm hearing this from a lot of organizations as we've come out of the pandemic, that they're getting calls, these nonprofits are getting calls from larger corporations who want to come on to their site and do some sort of volunteer effort as a team building exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's great, it kind of puts some stress on an organization. So your example of the four employee organization, they might be doing the work of the angels, but can they really handle, you know, 45, 55 folks coming to their site that represent a national bank or
Right.
a tech company? So how do we think about that?
Yeah. Managing volunteers is just pushing everything off of your plate and letting somebody else take it. It takes work
Yeah.
to get volunteers to be productive. So you do have to balance the concept of, is the effort I have to put in to make these volunteers successful worth my time and effort, or whoever may be on staff. So there may be situations where it's just not worth the setup to help them be productive in order to bring them on. But if you broaden your scope and you can manage it correctly, the work that you put in to successfully make a volunteer event can encourage them to do a great job that time, but to also be interested in your organization and to possibly get involved again in the future or in other ways. So it's not like, if you have a limited scope, it's not just that one thing that they're doing. You could be possibly creating relationships that are really going to benefit your organization over the long haul.
So you're kind of treating this like a POE, a point of entry, where
Right.
we're not just saying, here's some free labor. Let's get these tasks done.
Hmm.
But let's start, to explain what we do and share with that magic of what's going on. Really an interesting thing I want to move into, because along with this, you advise us to treat volunteers like donors, not employees.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Most people in the nonprofit sector, they don't say this, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
What
yeah.
is
So
yeah.
it's a there may be a little more extreme of a statement than I'm going to explain it to be. But if you have a healthy organization and you lead your employees well, it's just a slight nuance between the two things. It may not be that different. The real contrast is in like an old school way of thinking of, all right, guys, it's time to get to work. We got stuff to get done. And like that's not how a volunteer wants to come in and hear a welcome to get
Right, right,
started.
right.
So an employee might say to their employee, or an employer might say to their employees, thanks for the hard work. You're doing a great job and giving the customers a valuable product. But to volunteers, you would say, thank you for donating your time and your energy. You're helping to support our mission. And
Yeah.
so it's a similar thing, especially if you have healthy employees. But
Mhm.
it's really about making sure you're not just treating them as something that could be brushed away, or it's a one-time interaction and you don't really care about the long-term relationship.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's too many. I mean, as somebody who's volunteered throughout their whole life, um, there are those moments in time when you show up and somebody gives you an orientation and shares the passion of what the mission is.
Hmm.
And then you're just like, you could be cleaning bathrooms, but you're so energized, you're ready to go, right?
Right.
Versus, oh, just come on in, sign in, and go over there. I mean, which is like a bummer, and
Yeah.
it doesn't align you to the passion of the mission or the passion of volunteering.
Yeah, one of the favorite events that I've done, Bloomerang gives all the employees hours to use to volunteer every year. So kind of like your sick time or your vacation time, we have volunteering time. And so
Wow.
every now and then there will be a collective group in a city that's all in the same place, and we'll find a place to volunteer. We'll do it all together as a group. And one of the favorite ones that I've done was with one of our customers, and they provide shower systems to homeless populations.
Mhm, mhm.
And so we actually met up with them ahead of time, and we had this kind of debriefing, and we talked about the software and how they use it. And so we actually had like a work think
Wow.
tank meeting, which was really fun. But we really got to hear about where they came from, what they did, why they do it, and the heart behind their mission. Like it wasn't just something that they do, but why they do it. And then we
Mhm.
got out to the place, and we're cleaning showers, and we're spraying down, used parts of the bathroom,
Yeah.
and we're picking up dirty towels and moving things around. So it's not clean, happy work.
No.
We loved it. And I tell everybody, if you need a place to volunteer, this is a great place to do it. And I would do it again. And I follow them on all their socials, and I get their newsletter. So it was a great experience.
And do you think that if you hadn't had that, first of all, that engagement and that welcoming, but that kind of lead in,
Hmm.
that it would have just been like, what the hell am I doing here? I could have been at
Right.
the art museum, you
Yeah,
know?
no, they did a great job once, because we transitioned over to what we were actually doing, and then they kind of went into their what they would normally do with a volunteer
Yeah.
scenario. And even then, it was still a great. They did it well. They
Yeah.
handled their volunteers well. They gave us the same mission and what we're doing and why we're doing it, and it was positive.
I love it. That is a great example. Thank you for sharing that, because, I think there are probably a lot of organizations that would say we could never ask volunteers to do that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
They'd be afraid. They'd be like, "Oh, it's too gritty. It's too harsh. We're gonna lose people."
right.
So yeah,
and
cool.
and giving volunteers options or an easy entry is always a good way to start, because it may not be the only time. If they're willing to do it and they're willing to do it for you, they're probably willing to do it again. So giving them options of what they could do, this or this, and making it easy, or giving them it takes that work that we're talking about to get into it to start with, but actually preparing the situation so that they have an easy experience to volunteer. And that has put effort on you to start with, but hopefully it's worth it in the long run.
This just popped into my head, and I've got to ask you this. What do you see in terms of the ecosystem of repeat volunteerism? Do you find that more of these engagements are just one-time one-offs, or are you seeing people say, yeah, I could do this every month, or I could do this every quarter, or
right
they're more engaged?
I looking back, because in preparing for this, I was thinking about all the things that I've done, all the places I've volunteered, and I'm like struggling to remember some of them, because there's been a few, and but I haven't kept up that with that relationship, and it was a one-time thing, and I think I would be willing to do most of those again. So it's really, I think, on the nonprofits side to make sure that they build a relationship in order to bring me back, or to ask me back, or give me an experience that makes me want to come back.
Exactly. It's such an interesting thing, because I think there's so much of a parallel life and ecosystem to restaurants and the nonprofit sector. And it's kind of like, how would if you didn't have 50% of your guests coming back, you would go out of business.
Right.
Well, 50% of donors don't always come back to an organization. There's a lot of loss. Your volunteers, your board, your funders, your stakeholders, they're not coming back to your organization.
Right.
You're not going to be sustainable. Just like in the restaurant world, right? Basic business 101.
There's so many that I've done where I've actually been the one coordinating the experience and talking to somebody at the organization to do the volunteering. And so they have my contact information. They know me, and they know that we had a good experience, and no one's ever asked me to come back, like specifically, directly. So sometimes I get on a newsletter, there's opportunities and there's avenues to like communicate that. But a personal ask is not beyond your ability, or even just like the appropriateness of doing. Just like, thank you for coming. I know you came 6 months ago with a group of people. Would you be interested in doing it again? We have this event coming up. And like that's not beyond, I think a reasonable thing to do.
I know. So let's get into that more about building those relationships. It's shocking to me. It is and it isn't. I should say it's more heartbreaking to me to think that, we get somebody like you, perfect example, cleaning the showers for an unhoused population, gritty, grim work. And then you recount that as being one of your most positive volunteer experiences. We've got to be going back to these people that we've had some sort of point of entry. And it's just a stunning thing how many nonprofits are really, they kind of have a policy, if you will, in place that we don't pitch our volunteers. We don't engage them that way, and it's even if they're like one time or, legacy volunteers. What do you think about that? And how can we change that mindset?
Yeah, I understand the hesitancy to not want to do a pitch right then. And that might even be appropriate. Thank you for, the hour and a half that you did shuffling papers together. Would you like to donate? Like that seems like, maybe a bit of a bait and switch even. Yeah, you don't want it to come across like that. So I think the best thing to do to start with, at least, is to show them the impact. First of all, show them the mission and what it is that they're accomplishing and helping you get toward a goal. but then show them the impact of what it is that they did and engage with them that way. So like following back up with them afterwards, if there was a fundraising effort involved, to show them exactly how much they say or they made. My daughter's in the band in high school, and so with the band boosters, we're constantly doing events to raise money, and every single one of them, we make sure that thank you for coming out to the car wash today. We raised $1,000, and that's all thanks to you. That money is going to feeding them on a trip. Like, so how much impact you had, what the outcome of it was, and then that communication to keep the relationship going.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things I'm a fan of is at volunteer efforts is a takeaway kind of, it can be a panel card, it can be something really simple, is a wish list. And if you are smart and you tag it to an Amazon shop, you can be like, this month we need boys socks, we need, soccer balls, we need whatever, and you can get them for us at this on this Amazon link. I think that's a really powerful way to get people engaged quickly. And it's so interesting to me because I feel like a lot of people will spend more money with an organization buying stuff than they will write a check.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? And then you're like, yeah, I was there. And I was like, to go back to your showers, I was there cleaning, and, they could have really used some more Ajax, or they could have used some more bleach or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
But those Amazon shops I think, are such a great way to get somebody immediately engaged and feeling like they've completed a meaningful engagement and filled a need. And then you continue the conversation versus that hard pitch. Because I agree that can be a little tone deaf.
Yeah, you can always, and you probably should, always have like a next thing. So when they're done with their volunteering event, like like you said, here's an area of need that we have. Here's the next event that we have coming up in the future. So that, like, give them at least a way to get back in touch with you, in one way. And then another thing you said that I love is talking about the area of need. People are drawn to areas of need, especially in like urgent situations.
Yeah.
So whenever there is a need, let your donors and your volunteers know about that. I do social media. I volunteer social media for an organization. That's another creative way of getting volunteers engaged, is thinking outside the box and maybe think of stuff that people can do from home. Is always a great way. But back to the point, I do social media for one of the organizations. We have like a help center, and we'll post things from time to time, especially about our volunteers. If we ever do a volunteer group, we'll take a picture of them, and then like, thanks for coming out. That's a great way to engage. But then we'll post just like informational stuff or share kind of news. But the other day, we had just a need for diapers, newborn size diapers, to give away. And so I just posted that with a little graphic. I said, we're going to need some diapers. You can drop it off at this time. That post got 25 times more reach than anything else that I've done recently, because I'd let the people know that there was a need, and they jumped on it right away. So that's people, like you said, people are drawn to that kind of situation.
Right. Well, and I think in modern society, and modern retail, we can be much more immediately engaged and impactful, right? I mean, that person's like, well, heck, I'm going to the big box store anyway. Let me, turn my cart down that aisle and, grab a bunch of diapers. And then before you know it, you've navigated that sense of I've created a solution, temporary, immediate, and whatever, but you've engaged somebody. So yeah, that's cool. And I think, gosh, I don't know, Jared, it seems to me like a lot of times we're like looking down the field for the big score, right? We're like, how do we get to the end zone of like the big ask versus like, how do we keep moving down the field in small increments, right? And so we leave these opportunities for engagement behind? Because we're just looking for the big, the rich donor, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Another way to do that might be to follow up with a survey, especially if it's a new thing or a one-time thing where volunteers came in. Follow up with a survey of how was your experience, and give them a chance to give feedback. And of course, you can give them ways to connect with you too. But it's a chance for them to engage, to follow up with them afterward, to get feedback on how that actually did go, a chance to learn more, a chance for them to volunteer again, and then you get ideas and they feel like they've contributed. At the same time, you could use that survey as the chance to give that impact statement of what you did. Like you said, it's building the relationship, because I would almost expect I volunteered and, oh, here's the email with the ask for money. Right. But so it's like, okay, yeah, I saw that coming. But if I volunteered and I really want to hear about how your experience was, what can we do to make it better for the next time? Then, that doesn't take any skin off my back. Like, I can do that.
Right. Well, and don't you think that, it's not just a smart thing to do, but that it's like, you can get some feedback that really maybe helps your organization pivot to something else, or make a correction, or embrace a new direction, or amplify something.
Yeah.
I mean,
sometimes we're so internally focused that we don't see what we look like from the outside. So that's a perfect opportunity to get that.
Yeah. Well, Jared, you have been great. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And I think that I'm going to brag on you a little bit. Not only do you have a super cool name, best name ever of any guest on the Nonprofit Show, I got to say, so far. And we've done this show for 5 years, over 1,100 episodes. This stands out to me.
Thank you very
But
much.
you are an amazing community participant. Talk to us really quickly before we let you go about the areas in your life where you volunteer and where you serve.
So currently, I am a treasurer for a organization called Drug Free Wilco, which is just a drug coalition in the county that I live in. And I'm on their board of the directors. I just started because I was curious about what they wanted to do. And really, I got into that because we're foster parents. And so I've done a lot of volunteering and effort. And of course, being a foster parent is nothing. But I was wondering, what was the thing that could help alleviate the need for foster care? And that's usually drugs and alcohol. So that's why I wanted to get into that organization. But I also do social media and website maintenance for a number of organizations, and even past organizations that'll come back. 2 nights ago, I had a Chamber of Commerce I used to work with, and she was like, I can't get into the Google Forms. Can you set me up a vendor sign-up sheet? And so it took me 10 minutes to set it. That's volunteering. I got online and I set up a sign-up sheet for them, and it was nothing. But that's volunteering, and that's helping somebody out.
Yeah.
But I've been involved in Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Awesome.
That was a great experience for me. And then neighborhood organizations, the band boosters, and lots of one-off things too.
Well, you're the perfect. You have the perfect spirit and in the perfect mix of talent, because one of the things in the volunteer service arena, and I know you know this, but a lot of times, we find people with big hearts and they want to help, but we don't always find people that have the skill set that we need. And right now, technology is everything. So for you to open up I'm sure you don't have a lot of extra time, but that you're opening up that clock and you're saying, okay, I'm going to slot you in, is really powerful. And just from reading your bio, and from other folks at Bloomerang talking about you, I wanted to make sure that we could highlight that because it's really powerful. So thank you for coming on and talking about this. This is such a big, big topic, and it has such a marriage to technology as well. So really important. Jared Throneberry, you can find him and all of the amazing talent over at Bloomerang. Bloomerang is one of our presenting sponsors as well. They've been with us from the very beginning, along with American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Your Part-Time controller. Our new Friday episodes, Fundraisers Friday, check us out. And then 180 Management Group. These are the folks that join us day in and day out so we can have these amazing conversations like we've had with Jared today. So thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't say that having a good software to manage your volunteers would be a great place to start. So yeah, that would be something you should do.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, and especially as the way we volunteer and how and where and when we volunteer. This is just such an important thing. So you've been a delight to have on the Nonprofit Show. And we end each and every episode with this statement. And it goes like this: to stay well so you can do well. We'll see you back here again